So imagine companies are cutting checks for like 100, maybe $200,000 to train their teams.
Right, which is a massive, massive investment for any organization.
Exactly. And they are doing it because this specific methodology generates a proven, audited 63% increase in new business.
Hmm.
I mean, Motorola famously ran this across their whole organization and saw exactly those gains. It's basically the closest thing corporate America has to a winning lottery ticket.
Yeah, a guaranteed payout.
But, and this is the crazy part, the data shows that within 6 months, about 70% of the highly paid professionals who get this training just quietly abandon it.
They literally take that winning lottery ticket, glance at the numbers, and just throw it straight into the shredder.
Right.
It completely defies basic economic logic, but it really points to a much deeper truth about how human beings operate under pressure.
Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome to You, the Learner. Today's mission is to dissect this massive behavioral paradox.
It's a fascinating one for sure.
We are taking a deep dive into a legendary communication framework and looking at its recent, honestly explosive collision with artificial intelligence.
Yeah, the AI angle completely changes the game here.
It really does. And to do this, we're drawing insights from a few different places. We've got an AI implementation guide from Olive.ai, a really deep analysis from FlowState, and this is super interesting, some Arabic audiobook summaries that break down the raw psychology of how we make decisions.
And it is vital to note right up front that this goes way beyond just standard sales strategy.
Oh, absolutely.
If you are listening to this right now, what we are really exploring is a masterclass in human psychology.
Yeah.
It's an exploration of how we ask questions, why our brains subconsciously resist changing our behavior, and, well, how technology is finally stepping in to solve this seemingly unsurmountable relapse problem in behavioral training.
So to grasp why this relapse happens today, we kind of need to trace the framework back to its origins.
Right, back to the 1980s.
Yeah, exactly. There was this researcher named Neil Rackham and his team at a group called Huthwaite pull off something that frankly sounds impossible before the era of, automated data collection.
Oh, the scale of what they did was just staggering.
They analyzed 35,000 sales calls
Wow.
across 23 different countries over 12 years.
Yeah, I mean, it still remains one of the largest empirical studies of human persuasion ever conducted.
Totally.
Rackham's team was hunting for the DNA of a successful high-stakes agreement. Like, what actually makes someone say yes when the stakes are massive, the timelines are long, and, you have multiple stakeholders involved?
And the findings were shocking, right? Because they completely inverted all the conventional wisdom of the time.
They really did. The tactics that dominated the landscape back then.
Like aggressive closing.
Right. Aggressive closing, expertly overcoming objections, heavy feature pitching. The data showed those tactics were actually actively toxic in complex deals.
Toxic, meaning they didn't just not work, they destroyed value.
Exactly. I mean, in a purely transactional environment, like a small one-off purchase, sure, high-pressure closing works.
Right.
But in a complex scenario, applying pressure triggers a very predictable defensive psychological response. The buyer's walls go straight up.
Yeah, the more pressure you apply,
The faster they retreat.
it's kind of like trying to win a marathon by running at your sprint pace from the very starting gun.
That's a perfect analogy.
You are applying the wrong physiological strategy to the wrong event. In a complex deal, if you do that, you just burn out and completely alienate the other party.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture for you, the learner, this dynamic is universal.
Right, it's not just about sales.
Not at all. Whether you are pitching a merger to a skeptical board of directors or negotiating a multi-year vendor contract.
Or even just trying to get buy-in for a new project from different departments.
Exactly. Leading with your features and pushing for a quick consensus is counterproductive. You really have to build the foundation first, organically.
But, you still have to get to yes eventually. So if pressure's off the table, what replaces it?
Well, Rackham's massive dataset revealed a distinct pattern in successful high-stakes conversations. It's a very specific four-part sequence of questions known by the acronym SPIN or SPIN.
Right, spin. And the brilliance of spin in it isn't just the letters, it is the psychological progression.
Yeah, the psychology is everything here. And actually, the Arabic audiobook analysis we reviewed really illuminates the underlying mechanics of this.
So let's walk through the letters. The sequence begins with S. which stands for situation.
Right, situation. These are your basic fact-finding questions to establish the landscape.
Like asking about their current processes, right?
Exactly. The size of their team, the tools they use.
Wait, aren't those things you should largely know before you even walk into the room, assuming you've, done your prep work?
Yes. And that is exactly the trap.
Oh, interesting.
Novice communicators use situation questions as a crutch because they feel safe.
Right, they just want to break the ice.
Yeah, but they end up spending half the meeting confirming basic operational details, which just rapidly drains all the energy from the room.
It's boring.
Super boring. The data suggests keeping these to an absolute minimum, like 3 to 5 questions at most.
Okay, so you establish the baseline quickly, and then you transition to P, which is the problem question.
Yes. This is where you hunt for what the framework calls implied needs.
Implied needs. So you aren't looking for a fully formed demand for your solution yet.
Not at all. You are just looking for friction.
What's broken?
Right. What is frustrating the team? Where are the bottlenecks? You are basically inviting the other party to admit that the status quo isn't perfect.
Okay, but an implied need, like a mere frustration, isn't enough to drive a massive million-dollar decision.
No, of course not. People will live with a minor headache rather than undergo brain surgery, right?
That makes sense.
To drive real action, you need the next stage, the I, which stands for implication.
And this is where the entire system hinges, right? The implication questions take that minor headache and explore what happens if it goes untreated.
Exactly. And what's really fascinating here is that the data shows average communicators almost entirely ignore this step.
Wait, really? The most important part?
Yeah. Only 1 out of every 20 questions asked in a standard professional meeting is an implication question.
That is wild.
It is. Yet it is the most highly correlated behavior to ultimate success.
So an implication question is something like, if this system failure happens during your peak season, what does that do to your quarterly revenue?
Exactly. You are forcing them to calculate the ripple effects of the problem.
Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay?
Aren't we just intentionally making the other person panic?
How do you mean?
Well, we find a vulnerability and then we sit there poking at the bruise until they're sufficiently terrified to buy what we're selling.
I see what you're saying.
And then we hit them with the N, the need-payoff questions, where we ask them to describe the value of solving it. Aren't I just manipulating them into doing the heavy lifting of my pitch?
That is definitely the most common critique of the framework. But it actually misinterprets the psychology at play.
Okay, explain that.
You aren't inducing panic. You are generating constructive discomfort.
Constructive discomfort.
Yeah. The Arabic texts offer a really profound insight into this specific mechanism. As humans, we possess a deep-seated psychological resistance to being persuaded by an external force.
We hate being told what to do.
Exactly. When someone tells us what to do or tells us what our problem is, our critical faculties immediately look for flaws in their argument.
Right. We want to maintain our autonomy. We want the realization to be our idea.
We demand it, honestly. But we rarely argue with our own conclusions.
Ah, I see.
So, need-payoff questions. Asking something like, if we could automate that data entry process, how would your team reallocate those hours? That shifts the cognitive burden.
The buyer articulates the exact benefit themselves.
Right. It effectively transforms that earlier implied need into an explicit need.
Okay, let me make sure I've got this. An implied need is basically a complaint, but an explicit need is a stated, concrete desire for a specific solution.
Perfect. Yes.
So instead of me sitting there saying, this software saves you 20 hours a week, they're the ones saying, wow, if we didn't have to do this manually, we'd save 20 hours a week.
Exactly. And when the words come out of their mouth, it is the truth.
But when it comes out of my mouth, it is just a sales pitch.
Exactly. And that self-persuasion is exponentially more durable than anything you could ever pitch to them. Once they state the value, they own it.
Wow. Okay. But translating that 4-part sequence into an actual, say, 30-minute calendar invite is a totally different challenge, though.
Oh, for sure.
You cannot just walk into a boardroom and start firing off implication questions.
No, you'd get thrown out. This raises an important question of structural pacing. The framework actually divides the meeting into 4 distinct stages.
Okay, what are they?
Opening, investigating, demonstrating capability, and obtaining commitment.
And the investigating stage is the real arena where the spine sequence happens, right?
It is the undisputed core of the meeting. The critical error most professionals make is rushing the investigating stage because They're just desperate to get to the demonstrating capability
To
stage.
want to show off the slide deck.
Right, they want to demonstrate their expertise and talk about their product.
Because that is what feels like working.
Yes,
Asking questions feels passive to them, but presenting feels active.
exactly. But the framework suggests the demonstrating capability portion should be incredibly brief, like 10, maybe 15 minutes maximum.
That's short.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be a generic feature dump. It must explicitly mirror the buyer's own language from the investigating stage.
Right. So if the buyer used the phrase, crippling our time to market during the problem phase,
Yes.
your presentation should not just highlight increased efficiency. It must explicitly address how your solution removes what is crippling their time to market.
Exactly. You are simply playing back the explicit needs they already confirmed.
Which naturally sets up the final hurdle, which is obtaining commitment.
Right.
And there is a massive distinction drawn in the research here between an advance and a continuation.
This is crucial.
I like to think about this like the end of a first date.
Okay, I love this analogy.
Right. So a continuation is when they say, I had a great time. We should definitely do this again sometime. It is pleasant. It feels like a win, but it is completely passive. In business, that translates to, send over a white paper or let's touch base next month.
It is a polite dismissal disguised as progress.
Exactly. But an advance, keeping with the dating analogy, is saying, I'm making a reservation at that Italian place for 7 p.m. on Friday.
It requires a concrete commitment.
Right. Time, energy, or personnel. So in a complex deal, an advance is scheduling a technical review with the engineering team for next Tuesday.
And the research indicates that if you execute the investigating stage correctly, if the buyer fully articulated the need payoff themselves, securing that advance is nearly frictionless.
Really?
Yeah. It actually reduces overall objections by 55%.
55%? That's huge.
Because objections usually stem from a lack of perceived value. If they built the value case themselves during the strength sequence, what are they going to object to?
You have preemptively resolved the friction.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean? We have a system that cuts objections in half and drives massive revenue gains. Yet we're back to that shredder paradox from the intro.
Right.
70% of teams revert to their old habits within 90 days. Why do they abandon something that works so incredibly well?
Well, the failure is not in the methodology. It is in human neurology.
Okay, human neurology.
Yeah. The analysis points to 3 cascading failure points. The first is the telling habit relapse.
The telling habit.
Human beings seek psychological safety under pressure. When a stakeholder challenges you or the room goes cold, your brain's threat response triggers.
You get defensive.
Right. And the safest, most comfortable action is to talk about what you know best. Your own product, your own features, your own brilliance.
You retreat to your own territory.
Exactly.
Instead of leaning into the discomfort of crafting a really good implication question, you just start listing specs.
Yeah. Which makes sense biologically because formulating those implication questions in real time requires an enormous amount of working memory.
It's a lot to juggle.
It is cognitively exhausting. You are simultaneously trying to read the room, actively listen to the prospect's answers, and dynamically synthesize their, localized frustration into a downstream, enterprise-wide financial impact.
Doing that on the fly is a high-wire act.
It really is.
And then add on top of that the administrative burden.
Oh, the admin burden is brutal.
Modern professionals are essentially acting as highly paid stenographers.
That's a great way to put it.
After a complex call, they are expected to navigate their CRM, their customer relationship management software, and manually log everything. They have to categorize the implied needs, the explicit needs, the timeline, the decision criteria.
Right, which creates a severe concentration trade-off during the actual call.
Because they're taking notes.
Exactly. You are asking someone to perform elite-level psychological framing while simultaneously taking verbatim mental notes for a database.
You just can't do both.
The human brain cannot optimize for both tasks at once. So naturally, the professional sacrifices the complex questioning strategy to ensure they have enough basic notes to keep their manager happy.
Well, if that is the biological reality, then traditional coaching models like a manager shadowing 1 or 2 calls a month, that's just fundamentally unequipped to change human behavior. Right?
Absolutely broken. Sending a team to a 3-day intensive workshop, it doesn't increase someone's working memory.
Right.
It doesn't stop their cortisol from spiking when a client pushes back on pricing in week 6.
Because occasional interventions just lack the touch point density.
Exactly. They lack the touch point density required to rewire ingrained neural pathways.
And this is where the story shifts, right, from the 1980s to today.
Yes, because this decades-old framework has suddenly found its perfect counterpart in artificial intelligence.
AI is built to solve exactly this cognitive load problem.
It is uniquely positioned to act as a cognitive exoskeleton.
A cognitive exoskeleton. I love that. And we are looking at some very recent implementation data from Olive.ai, right?
Yes, looking at 2025 and 2026 data.
And they detail this 4-touchpoint reinforcement model. It isn't a manager listening to a random sample of calls. It is an AI monitoring 100% of conversations.
Always on, always reinforcing. Let's break down those 4 touch points.
Let's do it.
The intervention starts before the meeting even begins.
Okay.
An AI meeting assistant prepping you with a brief. But instead of just summarizing the company, it suggests specific, tailored implication questions based on the prospect's historical data and industry trends.
Wow. So it completely offloads the mental heavy lifting.
Entirely.
You don't have to scramble to connect the dots between a supply chain delay and their quarterly targets because the AI just hands you the fully formed question right before you log on.
Exactly. Then comes the post-meeting touchpoint. A coaching agent analyzes the transcript and delivers immediate, objective feedback.
Like grading your paper instantly.
Right. But it doesn't just offer generic advice. It flags the exact timestamp, say, minute 14, where you skip the need-payoff phase and relapse straight into feature pitching.
That immediate feedback loop is crucial for habit formation.
It really is.
Yeah.
But the macro-level intervention, the weekly and monthly touch points via the AI deal drivers and CRM managers, that is where the administrative nightmare truly ends.
Yes, the CRM managers.
The AI uses large language models to parse the messy, nonlinear audio of a human conversation.
Because humans don't speak in bullet points.
Right. And it automatically extracts and structures the implied needs, the explicit needs, the next steps. It populates all those CRM fields instantly.
So it entirely eliminates that concentration trade-off we discussed earlier.
It handles all the rote categorization, freeing up the human's working memory during the call.
Which actually allows the human to be more human.
Precisely.
If I know the AI is meticulously capturing the data and categorizing the decision criteria, I can just maintain unbroken eye contact.
You can actually listen.
Right.
Yeah.
I can watch their body language shift. I can deploy maximum emotional intelligence because I am not worried about whether I typed out their exact quote about their budget constraints.
And the results reflect that biological relief.
What does the ROI look like?
Well, the data shows that when you pair the SPIN methodology with continuous AI reinforcement, you compress the traditional learning curve. What used to take 6 to 12 months to master is now clicking in 90 days.
90 days? That's incredible.
Furthermore, the abandonment rate flips entirely. Instead of 70% dropping the framework, over 90% maintain sustained adoption.
It just makes best-in-class communication the path of least resistance.
It really does.
Well, let's do a quick flyover of what we've covered today for you, the learner. We examined Neil Rackham's monumental 35,000 call study that proved high-pressure tactics are basically lethal in complex scenarios. We decoded the SPIN sequence situation, problem, implication, need payoff, and the psychological necessity of constructive discomfort and self-persuasion.
Right.
And finally, we explored how AI acts as this cognitive exoskeleton, stripping away the administrative and mental burdens so professionals can consistently execute this elite framework without relapsing.
It is a fascinating synthesis of human empathy and technological precision. And I actually want to leave you, the learner, with a final thought to consider.
Okay, let's hear it.
Today, we've focused on how AI sits in the background of high-stakes business negotiations, gently correcting our blind spots and prompting us to ask deeper, more resonant questions.
Right.
But look at the trajectory of this capability. If large language models can successfully analyze and correct our conversational empathy in a boardroom, how long until we rely on personal AI agents in our private lives?
Oh, wow.
Could this technology be used to help us become better listeners with our partners? Or more patient communicators with our children?
That is wild to think about.
Are we entering an era where technology isn't just a tool for commerce, but an active coach, teaching us how to be better, more connected humans?
Now, that is a profound question. Knowing the winning numbers is one thing, but having the system to ensure you actually play them in every area of your life is everything. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep asking those implications, and we'll catch you next time.